For our example, please go ahead and proceed to your course content folder and open up our EMA strategy notebook. I promise I'm going to start going a little faster. I'm sure some of you are probably tired of hearing me drabble on about some of the items that are getting pretty repetitive. So I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit, talk through these a little faster because these should start to feel more familiar now that we've done a few of them, and really jump into this new strategy. So we'll go ahead and walk through this line by line, and then we'll perform our output. So very similar, we're going to reference this notebook in our future momentum strategy dashboards. So if you notice these are commented out, feel free to uncomment them out for this, but if you save it, remember to go back and comment to make sure they're commented out again before moving on, because when we reference this notebook, we do not want these to run later. So we will uncomment these, but beware that when you're done with this notebook, do not save it, close it so that these are normal. If you accidentally save it, just remember to go back and comment these sections out. Alright, so let's go ahead and walk through our EMA strategy. So as always, import yfinance as yf. We're going to import numpy as np. So numpy, again, we introduced in the last section. We're going to utilize it for its where functionality. And then we are also, very similar to the last section, going to import a notebook so that we can utilize a function that exists inside of our alpaca function. So do not be alarmed. We have not gotten to this yet. We have not gotten to the point where we're digging too deep into this alpaca functions notebook, but we are going to in the next section. So in this, I'm not going to talk too deep into this, but just beware we are utilizing one piece of this, and I'll explain that here in a second. So from alpaca, we're going to import every function that's in this notebook. Alright, so here we're going to start building our EMA strategy function. So with EMA strategy, we're going to pass it a ticker symbol, and much like our previous examples, we're going to create a data frame by calling yfinance, passing it that input symbol, and then getting 2 days worth of data at 1 minute intervals. We are then going to call a value shortable. We are going to create a variable and call it shortable rather, and we are going to call a function from alpaca to get our asset info for our symbol to figure out if it's shortable. So I told you in this, we're not going to just look for long entry points, we're also going to look for short entry points, and to be able to actually trade it and make sure that you can short the security, you have to be able to do that through the broker. So alpaca does offer the ability for you to check that programmatically by checking the asset and checking to see if its shortable value is true or false. So again, we'll get to this, we'll get to more of these alpaca things in a little bit, but this is us just grabbing that value and making sure that it is in fact a shortable security. Alright, from there, we are going to create new data frames to calculate our EMA 25, 50, and 100 and append those to our data frame in the same call. So we're going to take our existing analysis DF data frame, add an EMA 25 column by going to our close values and doing a average, and to get that exponential moving average over the last 25 values. So we are going to over the last 25 minutes calculate that 25 EMA utilizing this line of code. So just passing it our close values. So we're going to look at our close values of our data frame and then use the last 25 to calculate the EMA 25 column. And we're also in the same step going to round our function. So we're going to round these to 4. Now down here you'll see that we round the entire thing to 2, but I just want to introduce various things as we go throughout this so you can round these different values as you go through. So this one is going to round to 4. Same with the 50. We're going to get that close, we're going to look at the last 50, round it to 4, and that's going to calculate our EMA 50 column. Our EMA 100 column, close last 100 values, and calculate and round to 4 decimal places. Alright, so side. What is side? Side is us figuring out whether it is going to be eligible, and we're going to want to look at it for a long-term or a short-term entry. So this is going to look at whether your EMA 25 and 50 are above So if it's 25 greater than 50 and is 50 greater than 100. So if it is, that stock has positive momentum and it's headed in a positive direction, and chances are for this trading pattern, when we look for those securities to dip below that 25 and that 50, we want them to come back above, and that's going to indicate an area where we would buy and we would go long into the security. Here we're also going to nest a where. So in our last one where we had, where these are true, we want you to equal this value. So wherever the 25 is greater than the 50 and the 50 is greater than the 100, you're going to be a buy. But instead of the other side automatically being a short, we also want to know where the 25 is less than the 50 and the 50 is also less than 100, which would equal a sell. So you could have it to where these things are just starting to cross over, and you might not have the 25 greater than the 50 greater than the 100, and you also might not have the 25 less than the 50 less than the 100. So we want to look for all of those scenarios. So we found our buy, but where 25 is less than 50 and 50 is less than 100, then that's going to equal a sell area, or one where we want to maybe potentially short the security. Else we want to hold. So this is again a nested where. Instead of just ending in a sell or a hold, we're putting another where in here so that we can add two additional values that this could be if this is flipped, or if it's not quite in either state for the hold. Alright, so when we get to watch and our watch S, this is going to be where we're trying to figure out if the close price of the security is on or below that 25 value. So we're going to start watching the security. When we're in a buy side, we want to know if the close value is less than or equal to the 25 EMA. That's going to tell us each line where the stock price close value has dipped below this EMA. If it's true, I want that column to be a 1. Where it's false, or where the side is sell, so where we decided to sell back here looking for the short position, where it's sell and the open, so instead of us looking at the close, we're going to look at the open, and the open price, so being on the top of that value, is greater than or equal to 25. I then want to have this be a 1, and then if neither are true, a 0. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to allow us to look at that 25, the 50, and the 100 EMA, and this one is very specifically, this line is focusing on the 25 just to see if it's dipped below that line. All right, so if it's dipped below the 25 for a buy, or if it's went above the 25 for a sell side, I want this column to go to a positive 1, and I want it to notify me that these values have crossed over. For our watch side, this is going to tell me how many times this watch value has rolled over. So this is going to be a rolling sum of the last two values to tell me, have the last couple data points crossed over that line. So instead of just looking at is it crossed over now, we want to have a rolling value so that we have some kind of historical view of when this thing has passed over. So if that thing crosses under the 25 for the sell and we're waiting for it to come back above, it might not come back on the one we're looking at. So we have to know in prior history, has it went under, so that we know, by the time it's up above it, when we might want to have our entry point and we think it might break out, we have to know that prior to that entry point that it was below that 25 or above the 25 for the sell side. So this rolling value is just telling us if it had, prior to the current value we're looking at, passed above or below that value. For our DQ, this is our disqualifier, we want to know at any point has that buy symbol went below the 100 EMA, or on the sell side has it went above the 100 EMA. If it has done that on either side, if I'm in a buy or sell category and it's crossed over that 100, we're automatically disqualifying it for this. And for our disqualifier, we want a rolling sum. We want to look for the last, so for this example, we're pulling minute data. We're going to look over the last 15 minutes. If that has went underneath of that 100 EMA or above that 100 EMA, depending on the side, in the last 15 minutes, we are going to make sure that we are calculating that in our disqualifier sum value here. So making sure that we can see if it went above or below, which would disqualify it for this trading opportunity. And here we're also going to create a candle, which is going to tell us directionality. So, where we're not just looking at the crossover, we want to know if it's headed positive or negative so that we know if that breakout is maybe potentially pending. So here, if the close is greater than the open, it's going to be green, and if the close is less than the open, it's going to be red. Very simple on a candle. All right, for our long buy now, so our last two columns, we are going to look for those potential entry and exit points for the long and the short side. So on the long side, where we have buy, so where we said we were looking long, where our summation of our watch sum, so we have to know that it has crossed over that 25 within the last 2 minutes of this value. We want to know that it's greater than 0, and where we're not disqualified. So in the last 15 minutes, we've had no disqualifiers of it dipping below 100. We have to know that our low value of our security for that minute is greater than the EMA 25, meaning that our candle, even at the low point of the candle, it never touches the EMA 25. And we need to be headed in a positive direction with a green candle, meaning our close is higher than the open on this last minute pull. This would indicate an entry point for a long order. If not, stay hold. On the short side, we have the inverse. We're going to be looking for the sell side. We're going to be looking for, again, the watch summation to have crossed over that 25 threshold, so where we calculate watch S crossing over the EMA 25. Our DQ cannot have crossed over the 100 within the last 15 minutes. We need the high to be less than the current EMA 25 value, so the high of the candle of that security over that minute needs to be less than the current EMA 25. And we need to be in a negative direction, so our candle has to be red, so our close has to be less than our open value. And then this is where we're bringing back our shortable. We have to know if the security is actually shortable. If it is not, if it's equal to true, then enter. If it's not, if this isn't true, along with all these other things, even if all of these are good, if we can't short Apple or whatever stock we're looking at on our brokerage, we're going to enter a hold because it's a non-valid opportunity. And then lastly, these are the same two from the last. We're going to round the entire data frame where we have floats to 2, and then we're going to reset the index so that we have a way to manipulate this data frame better down the road when we get to our Dash application. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and run our function. So to make this active in this notebook, we run this first column. Nothing's going to happen until we come down here, uncomment out, assign our buy analysis to the output of our EMA strategy when we pass it the Apple value. So we're going to pass the Apple ticker to our EMA strategy, and we're going to assign the output of this function, this analysis DF, the output, equal to buy analysis. So let's go ahead and run it. We'll uncomment this out and we'll see what we get. All right, so with our buy analysis, we now have our standard items that we get when we run our Y Finance module, so our date time, our open, high, low, close, volume, dividends, and stock splits. And now you'll notice we have our values that we added within the function. We have our EMA 25, 50, 100, side, watch, watch S, DQ, DQS, candle, long buy, and short buy. So each of these are pertaining to the columns we talked through up here, and they're helping us to look for quickly these entry points based on minute data over the last 2 days from Y Finance. Rather than looking through that in here, let's go ahead and run our to CSV export so that we can take a look at this security. While this is opening, I just want a quick reminder again, as I do in every section, if you have a test notebook open from a previous section, make sure you close it so you can write over it or change the name when you export this so that this can be dropped in your course content folder. So we are opening this test.csv. I open it from my file folder, so that's why you don't see me double clicking here, but I'm opening it from my file folder, and then I'll go ahead and drag this over to our screen, expand our notebook, and we want to look for areas to see if there are any long or short buy opportunities over the last couple days. So we're going to go to our filters, and we're going to see, so on the long buy side, unfortunately we did not get any. We're still only in holds. Let's see if there were any short opportunities. Turns out there were, so let's go ahead and look and see what it identified as a short. So according to our analysis, we have two short opportunities on the 24th today at 10:06 and 10:17 a.m. So according to our analysis, we have a stock that was trending down. So you can see our 25 is less than our 50 and our 50 is less than our 100. We're on this, that means we're on the sell side. Within this time frame, our price dipped below this 25, or I should say above this 25 at a certain point. So one of these values has dipped above this 25 or went above this 25. We at no point crossed back over the EMA 100, so we have no disqualifier, and the candle was red, meaning we were headed in a negative direction, so our close was less than our open. So with that, it would have said we had two potential entries for short sales. So again, we're going to wrap up this section, but I encourage you guys that you can see, this one could be very complicated, right? I tried to go through it quickly, and I think we're even trending on 17 minutes here, but there's a lot to it. We added a lot of these frames or these columns into that data frame in a quick manner. Went through, used 25, 50, and 100 when these could have been different values. Tried to add in a candle and showing you looking for candlestick movement over this 25 EMA. So it'd be very helpful, for this section before you move on to fully understand what we've done, what crossover events we're looking for, and how we're getting to these entry points. So I encourage you to go through this, analyze these. If you see on the short side that you think you should be getting an entry point but you're not, just beware that you have to find a stock that's shortable. So I'm using, and if you're following along and using the notebook, you are also using alpaca, which something might be shortable on alpaca and it might not be on Robinhood or vice versa. So pay attention to that shortable side. And when you run these analytics, again, go in there and practice, put your own things into play. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Another handy thing that I'd recommend is that it might be good to go to something like a TradingView, a website where you can run this 3 EMA strategy and see what their metrics look like on these, and actually watch for these crossovers, not just in an Excel format, but in a viewable format. And we are going to do that later in the course when we get to the Dash applications. We're building up to that, but this is the start to that. So being able to do that visualization. So I recommend taking this information, playing with it, go test it, play with it, and come back and get ready for that next section.